what about that story with Huddersfield and
The Shea?
Ken's buying the Shea. He's doing it up. He's putting a new pitch in.
Ken Davey OBE.
He's finishing the building work to turn it into a Super League quality stadium.
Oh, and then he's going
he's
to walk
gonna buy
away.
another stadium.
Absolute nonsense.
Then he's going to buy. No, they won't buy another stadium.
That's nonsense.
You know about buying and selling things. You wouldn't do that.
Well,
You don't advise
developing
anybody.
stadia, he's fraught with complications, isn't it? How many stadia are built overnight?
But it's
within a couple of
built,
years.
isn't it?
No, I'm not talking about the Shea.
So once you've
So
done the
therefore
Shea,
the next one, yeah.
why would you need to go somewhere else?
Well, surely they do. For me, for that plan to be true, they should have already identified and owned a site and have planning submitted on a site in Huddersfield. Otherwise, it's a nonsense. I'm proof for funding for the new stadium. It's just all pie in the sky, is that? How can you have, London and what went on with their IMG score, and then a Super League club wanting to move to another town where there's another Rugby League club and play in their stadium?
We don't want to say it. We can't say the M word, can we? That can't be the Huddersfield, Sheffield, Halifax Blue Sox.
Yeah.
Giant Blue Sox Eagles. What?
I don't know. I'm not opposed to teams playing in the same stadium.
And Ken is deserving of a stadium named after him for everything he's done.
Money,
but I can't see he'd invest twice. I just don't know why you do that.
He does that with coaches sometimes.
I can see the need to get out of the John Smiths, and I can see the need of the people who own the John Smiths to want to edge them out. I can see it benefiting Huddersfield to play in a smaller capacity stadium, because if you can increase the crowd from where they currently are, and you can fill the Shea, which what would that hold? Maybe 10,000.
Something like that.
That's a viable commercial stream. But I don't see why you'd ever move back to Huddersfield. If it works, why would you move back?
They won't, will they? Supposedly they bought the YMCA, didn't they? Why not just develop that? I know it's out of town. Maybe it can't be developed.
It can't. There's a problem with it. Or Fartown.
Is there nowhere in Huddersfield that a stadium can be built?
Fartown.
Oh, dear, you don't want to go there.
Arena 84.
There's somewhere on Leeds Road that they were looking at. They're further up from what used to be ICR. But I think that's where Huddersfield Town train.
Yeah, there's the Huddersfield Leeds Road playing fields that may be there, but
so I think they were looking at further up Leeds Road.
The best location for a stadium for me would be Fringe Town Centre, but there probably aren't the sites that are big enough on the fringe of the town centre.
But then you're pretty close to the John Smiths.
Well, you are on Leeds Road. If you go on Leeds Road, it's just a little bit further along. It's tens of millions of pounds to invest at Halifax, and then probably hundreds of millions of pounds to build a new stadium, in Huddersfield. I just don't know where that money comes from.
And I assume he's not going to just say, "Hey, Halifax, have a free stadium now. I've built it for you," because we're probably enough back.
Well, it's owned by the council, isn't it?
Yeah, but they want to get rid. That's part of the problem.
But he's not going to then donate it.
But
to
then the other
Halifax
thing is, you've
Halifax.
also got Halifax town to take into account, because it's going to be really hard to have three teams over
on that pitch, which has been a bugger for the last few years.
Over
But is it not
12
on about
months.
putting a synthetic pitch down?
Yeah.
No, yeah.
But then
It's the only way you could do it there, because whenever it's wet, it's really boggy, that pitch. So,
but not the synthetic as in Widnes, because that wouldn't allow Halifax to get into the Football League.
wouldn't it?
No, you have to have a proper pitch. So
I
I
do.
can't remember who.
There's now hybrid pitches.
Yeah.
They've got one at Headingley.
There was a team.
Well, most pitches like that, like the John Smith's is part plastic, part grass, but yeah, it would. Okay. Anyway, you're still talking a lot of money anyway, aren't you? Yeah, to buy the stadium off the council. They're not going to give it away, but yet the council
it would
will be
also
cash
depend
strapped.
how much he would get from the owners of the John Smiths to terminate the lease. Because I think he's clever enough to get some money out of them and put that into the Shea.
And if I'm also building a stadium in Huddersfield, do I need something else on the site to enable that, or?
But I don't know on the Kirklees Stadium. The Kirklees Stadium is owned by, or John Smith Stadium is owned by the council,
No,
as I believe, isn't
it's
it?
a management group.
Kirklees Stadium Development Limited, I think.
Part owned by part the council, part the football
That's
club,
right. You're
part
right.
Ken.
Yeah, it's tripartite.
And I think the tripartite has changed, that the council were the major holders, and I think it's now Huddersfield Town under their American owners. And I think Ken now has a much lesser share, but to give that up to enable Huddersfield Town, there would have to be some money transfer that would probably pay for a lot of the work at the Shea.
Thanks, Paul. Sutton United were the team who they had a plastic pitch and they had to take it out to put a grass one in to go back into the.
Because I know they were looking at developing the area behind. I don't know which stand it is at Huddersfield, but as you come out of the main stand, that one to the right, that area behind there and putting a major commercial development there, but that never got off the ground.
They were going to do that at Salford, weren't they? Put a major commercial in. There was going to be a golf
Well, they're built on
course at
Aldi.
one stage.
And a big sign next to the motorway that's going to earn billions of pounds.
Dr. Marwan wanted a golf
I don't know.
course.
I think it's one thing moving them on a temporary basis, but you'd want to know what the plan is and where's the money coming from, what's the feasibility of getting planning for a new stadium. I don't know. It just
Well, you know these things.
and they're not easy to solve. They're not easy to solve and don't take and take a long time to often fix. So I can't see if they do move, it could be 10 years before they move to another stadium.
The difference between Huddersfield and Salford is Huddersfield have got someone with money behind them, willing to put it in every year, because neither team can seemingly build crowds, despite the fact that they have had moderate success.
And again, not knowing all the intimate details of why Salford are in the predicament that they're in, but the deal that they signed in their desperation to leave the Willows, or desperate need to leave the Willows, I think it was on the verge of not being condemned, but there was so much work that needed doing on it that it just wasn't viable to stay there and they needed to get out. So the deal that they signed to move to the SCS, as it now is called this week,
It's a sofa.
yeah,
Like I say, Salford
What it is.
Stadium. Yeah.
was
Northern Upholstery Stadium.
so restrictive that's been part of the problem, that they need to get these handcuffs broken to move forward in, and they've lost a lot of their traditional crowd that would have gone to the Willows. Their crowds were good towards the end of last season when they had that run through to the playoffs, but they don't have a huge amount of season ticket holders.
Yeah, but so if Huddersfield, part of the Huddersfield argument is you don't get good crowds. Well, why would they get any better crowds in? Appreciate it would look better in a smaller stadium.
And the atmosphere is better, and I think
you're still playing in Halifax.
yeah.
I just doesn't seem like the answer to me.
Mark Sneed's not got an agent. He's a clever boy, isn't he?
So does he look after his own?
This is words said by Richie Myler, Hull FC's overlord of everything, talking to Steve Mascon, overlord of Patreon today. Mark's a different one, because Mark doesn't have an agent. Us as a club can't speak to Mark directly. I've had many conversations with Paul King over players and we said we would be interested. That's as far as we got with Mark. So no one can talk to Mark Sneed. There's no intermediary. Because we all know, because we're not thick, that players' agents may offer their clients around when the going gets tough or whatever. But Mark Sneed is stuck there, he can't move, because Salford aren't selling anyone, despite the fact they've been told to sell players, apparently.
That's the only bit I don't understand about this Salford thing. That in terms of press releases, the one that we saw was the RFL had mandated Salford to start selling players because they were under extra special super duper measures and they'd been in, and the condition for granting them their £500,000 advance on their television monies was they had to shed £800,000 of player cost.
So you at least need a winger now. You've got to be on the phone and sign a winger from Salford.
Nanny
Must have some.
McDonald.
Is he?
No.
Homesick.
But then everything now apparently is it's Salford are deciding when the deadline is that they're going to sell players or not. And I'm told,
investment's just round the corner.
Well, I'm told that the flashpoint will be this Thursday or Friday when wages are due, and if there isn't a takeover and if the wages aren't paid, then players will be sold.
So I expect to see tweets on Thursday saying major update in Salford story or major update due in Salford
But the
story.
problem is that you mention one thing, you put out a statement saying we have mandated Salford to sell players, and then 3 weeks down the line Salford are still saying no, we'll decide when we're selling players, and it's like, who is actually in charge of this situation?
I don't understand the Salford situation really. I've not followed that closely enough, but I have seen people being critical of the RFL, and the only thing I would say on that, it seems to me that it's a separate. They're all independent companies. They're all given a sum of money to spend. It's up to that club
if
really
you
in some
are
ways to spend.
advancing monies to them and
That's
conditions
different.
are attached
Yeah,
to it,
Agreed.
and those conditions just keep being put back and back and back, what does that say about who
is
in charge of this situation?
But
I mean,
what's the
clearly
alternative? You see, the club goes under, so or they start selling players.
Well, there's two
Stop it
alternatives.
from-
One is they start selling players, which again,
That's a lot of players to
potential-
sell.
We reckon 4, but the 4 best players, which potentially makes them uncompetitive again before the season kicks off, which changes the dynamic of what you're promoting when the season launch comes around. This is a team that got to the playoffs. They've
got to the playoffs with money they don't have, apparently.
They've also got to recruit players to fill the gaps of the ones that have gone. Which again, it isn't particularly fair on Paul Rowley that 4 players turn up that he hasn't had all pre-season. He goes, right, you're all in my team because you're replacing the best.
Like our
Right,
the Mike
Ryan
Eccles
Hampshire.
London team.
Yeah, but I mean, Paul
And
must
he's
know
great.
what's going on behind the scenes.
I'm just saying
It's his last year as head coach, isn't he? He's going to be
director of
rugby next year.
But
He'll be holding the purse strings.
the other option, Salford fans turn off now,
Phil, you've been warned.
is proposed by Paul Cook in the magazine. So I'm absolving myself of all responsibility, saying that they could be in the Championship and rebuild in the Championship because
this year or next year?
No, this year, and that the teams who have been in that situation, admittedly by relegation rather than financial issue, predominantly Hull KR, Lee, Wakefield, have found a way of coming back stronger. They don't have to disappear. That the teams in the Championship would welcome Salford coming in, that their team would be competitive even if they'd lost 4 or 5 of their best players. The likelihood is that whilst there would be pain for the crowd in the short term, the crowd figure overall wouldn't necessarily lessen by that much. And then you get the option of either going with 11 teams in Super League and having a bye week, or you look at, under the IMG ratings, who is the next team that would be eligible to play in Super League?
Yeah, but they're not
Who's
likely
that?
to be any stronger.
To lose.
So we've got to have 2 flights to France. We're not going to France,
saying,
Phil. We can't afford it.
Again, the word on a street, which is
Quality Street,
was that Bradford had been approached to fill the gap.
Oh, come on, Fit.
I'll quit. I'll quit.
Who's on this podcast?
I'll quit. I will quit.
Whose Twitter have you been reading?
I'll quit.
No, not a chance.
No, but you've left it so late now that you haven't got any room to manoeuvre.
Don't make me swear.
Whatever the contingency plan is by the RFL, and the one thing Tony Sutton says, I'm telling you nothing, but there is a contingency plan. We are aware of everything that's happening. The contingency can only be Salford survive in some form, Salford move out of the firing line but survive, somebody else comes in to replace them, or we go with an 11-team league. I can't see too many other contingency plans.
No, but that's probably it.
We'll stick Gull in the beat London.
But who knows what will happen? I'd be surprised if Salford won't drop out of Super League in my opinion, and they'll sell a few players and they'll carry on and probably limp through the season a bit.
I've been a Salford fan since 1978, says Phil, but we really shouldn't be in Super League. No money and not enough fans. Paul says, just let Huddersfield move into Dewsbury for a couple of seasons. It worked for Bradford, who we were always told have far more support. Andy says the solution for Huddersfield is easy. They go to Don Valley and become Sheffield again, like when they were successful. Lol. Ian says, I definitely think Bradford should replace Salford. Seriously, if that happened, I would...
I'm not saying anything other than that's, I believe, an option that has been looked at with clubs that were in readiness.
Who were next with IMG? Toulouse and then...
It wasn't Bradford.
No, exactly. So that is not going to happen.
But what is the point of having an IMG grading if you don't use that grading to then...
Oh, yeah, exactly. If you bring somebody in, it has to be the next one. The next
and if
cab
it is
off the rank.
Toulouse and that brings too many other logistical issues, then you have to go with 11 clubs, don't you? You don't promote somebody
Correct.
above.
You can't go then below. It won't happen in my view. I think they'll just have to sell a few players if they don't get this takeover. But takeovers don't happen quickly.
Where from that bloke who's going to buy them last year?
Well, who inherits the debt? They've got to pay off that debt.
Well, a lot of them.
They're still required to sell players.
There are 2 major creditors for the £5 million that they're trying to find. One is the council, which obviously part of the negotiations about whatever the lease might be on the new stadium could involve the council writing off some of that debt because they would have been spending equal, if not more, on maintaining the stadium. So
Yeah.
the other is the Wilkinson family, who were involved in moving them from
Yeah.
the Willows
God,
to,
that's years ago there.
and Paul King, who has underwritten a lot of the debt.
You would have thought the Wilkinson stuff would have come under the last CVA or whatever, wouldn't you? Because that would have been part of that historic debt when
But
Dr. Kukas was,
Unless it was passed on to...
which is daft, isn't it?
And didn't Paul put his house up against?
Yeah.
You
So
know,
again, he'd need to be freed of all guarantees, and I think I don't know whether he has physically loaned money or his house is just the guarantee for the
it's a
money. that has
guarantee
been
for
loaned.
money. But
So again, he'd have to be released from all of that.
and then they have to pass the fit and proper test person.
Well, the other thing,
Lol.
Because we know how well that's gone down
the
at Bradford.
other thing is you've got to know who
Yes.
you've got to know who the owners are, because when consortia are involved,
Shadowy owners.
Yeah.
you've got to know who
Who,
the
who
actual
did
owners
who
are.
did own Bradford Bulls? Who owns Bradford Bulls? Do we know who owns Bradford Bulls?
Nigel Wood.
Nigel Wood.
Oh, he's a major shareholder.
I do like how we've got rid of Salford now. Like, they're out.
I'm just
Everyone
gonna-
everyone
rubbish.
used to say that we're going to get to losing or whatever. We got rid of Salford now. So apologies to all the Salford fans. You're out now. So
We didn't suggest that was a good idea.
no.
We just said it was an option.
no.
Right. So do you want to know the who was next on the IMG rankings?
Oh,
Yeah.
you got the IMG. I thought you got some like embargoed information come through.
I wish.
Welcome to the IMG rankings. Y11 Phil says, Andy, it didn't happen when Toronto were dismissed because of financial reasons. League were promoted with the help of Wigan. Phil's got the IMG rankings.
Well, trying to get them for the right year. It says 2025.
Oh,
it's
no.
clearly not.
No.
Here we are. Rankings. Every IMG club.
St Helens won, of course. They won the IMG
Helens,
trophy.
yeah.
Well done, St Helens.
So
Auburn top bus store. In one.
in 13th place were Toulouse.
Yeah.
Right, so yeah.
In 14th place were London.
Who
London.
got beat
London.
by goal.
In
Yeah.
15th place were York.
York.
Really?
Right, York.
Wow.
And Bradford was 16th.
Right.
No chance.
Yeah.